If you lived in a town of 2,400 people with 9 unattended and unresolved deaths since 2018, where police officers' salaries comprised 9 of the town's top 10 salaries, and police officer salaries comprised 38 of the town's top 50 employee salaries, and where the top 4 police salaries, none of whom are the chief, totaled over $1,093,000 in 2023, and 6 police officers earned more than the state's governor, with one of them earning $100,000 more than the state's governor in 2023, and 6 police officers earned more than the U.S. Speaker of the House, and 5 earned more than the United States Vice President, would you feel that it's time for a police audit? Exactly. I audited 1 week of the Canton Police Department, and this is what I found. Disclaimer: I am not an auditor. I'm not a mathlete. I'm just someone who got tired of listening to the bickering at the audit meeting and decided to take a gander at the numbers. Take a look at these numbers, especially the percentage in comparison to others with the same title in Massachusetts. You have to admit, it seems a little disproportionate for the civil servant sector. From what I understand, the bulk of these salaries are due to overtime compensation, which points to a staffing problem, right? I mean, if people are doubling and tripling their base salary, it seems like there should be more employees to handle all the supposed crime. There comes a time when you have to ask yourself, does the need justify the cost? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is Canton a crime-ridden town requiring services that exceed their staffing? Well, let's take a look. Here are the extremely professional and thorough police logs for this past month. I'm not sure if the color coding means anything, but I do know that color ink is expensive, so I hope they didn't print these things off for family and friends. The PDF report is 38.5 pages and covers events that occurred between August 22nd and September 21st of 2024. Trying to plug these into a spreadsheet was grueling, so I decided to extract and analyze 1 week as a sample. The first week, since that's when I ran out of steam. Let's see what that magic week yielded. There were over 100, or I shouldn't say over, there were 150 total calls that the police responded to that week. Disclaimer: this is not a full accounting of the 150 calls or 150 responses. They're just the ones that stood out to me. Of the 150 calls, there was 1 911 hang-up, 1 911 unable to locate, 1 death, 3 disputes, 3 arrests, 6 disturbances, 7 noise complaints, 15 reports marked suspicious, 20 alarm, burglar, although 5 of them were accidental by employee or homeowner, and 32 building checks. Here is what I noticed about the responses to the calls. The outcomes that stood out to me were gone on arrival, which occurred 4 times, unfounded appeared 6 times, unable appeared 9 times, transported appeared 14 times, log entry only was 20 times, assist, as in fire or other agency, occurred 21 times, report to be filed occurred 23 times, and checked secured, in reference to the building checks, occurred 30 times. Speaking of suspicious, there were 8 calls for motor vehicle crashes, 5 of which occurred on Wednesday and 2 of which occurred on Monday. The 2 that occurred on Monday were classified as unable to locate and unfounded. There were also 3 calls to the animal control officer. 1 was classified as services rendered, and the other 2 were classified as unable to locate. So then I decided to categorize the calls because I had started wondering, is anybody doing anything in this town? Here is how I defined the two. For active calls, these would be the ones that have an indication that an officer was definitely present on scene, an indication that an officer interacted with someone, an indication that an officer successfully completed the task. For the passive calls, this is something that could be done from a desk at the station, something that a private security guard could do, and events that could be falsified in the record. And here is how this shook out. About 2/3 of the calls were passive and 1/3 were active. If we want to estimate how much these calls are costing Canton, they're not exactly giving us much to work with. So this math is wildly inaccurate, but it's kind of their own fault for not disclosing essential information. Here's their published budget info for 2024. If you're holding back a joke about size 10 font, you're in good company. And no, that is not a character assassination. Even when you blow it up, it's still stupid hard to read. But let's give it a go. The total adopted budget for 2024 was $6,119,045. And in the teeny tiny explanation for departments changes, it included 4 new patrol positions at a tune of $244.8 thousand. Let's hope that's a total and not per position. Training overtime increase, $175,000. Shift overtime increase, $100,000. Replacement overtime increase, $100,000. New traffic sergeant, $90.8 thousand. Regular overtime increase, $55.5 thousand. Stipends increase, $31,000. Training expenses, $8,000. Operational supplies, that goes back to the color ink, $5,000. R&M of vehicles, $4.5 thousand. Dues, $4.5 thousand. And equipment for personnel, $3.2 thousand. Grand total being $822,300. How do you like them apples, Bob? Now it's time for some math. Grab your solo cups and hang on tight. The adopted budget was $6,119,045 for the police department for 2024, which, when divided by 12, is $509,920 per month, or when divided by 52, is $117,674 per week. The sample week had 150 calls to the police, which, when we divide this into the $117,674 budget per week, results in a cost of $784.50 per call. Now, do you want to see something crazy? Multiply $784.50 per call by 32 visits to the parking lot on Turnpike Street that week. Those little pop-bys cost the town $25,104 for just that week. Because it turns out that there were actually 146 building checks between August 22nd and September 21st, these building checks cost the Canton residents upwards of $114,537 that month. The average of 146 building checks per month at $114,537 per month totals $1,374,444 per year. Let's say it louder for the police audit board members. $1,374,444 per year on building checks to what appears to be the Canton Auto Gallery on Turnpike Street. That's the most expensive after-hours security guard in the history of the universe. The Secret Service doesn't pay as well as the Canton PD checking up on the Canton Auto Gallery. I can save the citizens of Canton $1.3 million instantly. Tell the Canton Auto Gallery to hire a part-time nights and weekend security guard. Boom, nearly $1.4 million saved. It should be that easy, right? But it's not. You've seen the meetings, the lack of transparency, the disorganization, the general chaos that is so quintessential Canton. And we're not the only ones seeing it, because one of the vendors who considered submitting a bid for the audit had questions too. Let's take a look at the letter sent by the Sturm Group, who graciously took the time to spell out some of the potential problems with their plan for a police audit. Mr. McCarthy, we at Sturm Group would like to extend our sincere appreciation to the citizens of Canton who reached out and encouraged us to submit a proposal for the operational audit of the Canton Police Department. Knowing that our reputation for conducting complex investigations with integrity and ethics has reached the South Shore is encouraging. Please allow me to introduce myself and explain why I'm writing to you today. My name is Larry Smith, and I am the founder of STIRM, Sturm Group, Inc., abbreviated as SG, a boutique full-service firm specializing in security, training, investigations, and risk mitigation, with a strong focus on law enforcement services. SG has earned a reputation for handling complex cases that other firms often avoid. For instance, when two companies declined the opportunity to work with the local police department, we stepped in. Our investigation uncovered systemic issues within the department, including the involvement of the Municipal Police Training Committee in covering up forged MPTC certification records. We also identified significant problems with the Essex County District Attorney's and Attorney General's offices, which collectively declined to prosecute the police corruption case 7 times. More recently, we were retained by another police department after their auditor withdrew mid-project because the scope was beyond their capabilities. Sturm Group took over the audit, including managing the evidence and property section, ENP, move from the old department to the new facility. We are now finalizing the draft audit report for the department's review. The department's chief has publicly acknowledged that the audit would not have been successful without our involvement and expertise. Access to records and establishing a mechanism for compliance. During the audit, it is crucial to establish a clear mechanism to ensure that auditors have unfettered access to department records, as stated in the RFP, request for proposal, by the way. While the RFP promises full access, there must be a formal process in place for the auditors to report any instances where access to critical documents, data, or information is obstructed or delayed. This mechanism would allow auditors to escalate any issues swiftly to a neutral third party, such as a designated oversight committee or city official, with the authority to enforce compliance. This ensures that the audit can proceed without interference, and the auditors can conduct a thorough and transparent review of all necessary materials. Auditors must be able to raise concerns about access without fear of obstruction, and this mechanism should provide a direct line of recourse to resolve any disputes or delays promptly. Without such a process, the integrity of the audit could be compromised, especially in a situation where key records may be withheld or manipulated, either intentionally or unintentionally. Ensuring this level of accountability is vital to the success and credibility of the audit. Independent process for reporting criminal activity. In addition to addressing access to records, a separate and independent process must be established to handle any criminal behavior uncovered during the audit. The citizens of Canton are deeply divided, with a large portion already questioning the integrity of the police department. In addition, there is widespread distrust of law enforcement agencies involved in both the Reed and Birchmore cases. This distrust extends to District Attorney Morrissey's office, which played a key role in both cases. To ensure that the audit remains impartial and trustworthy, we recommend appointing a special prosecutor with full investigative and prosecutorial authority based on the federal special prosecutor model. This individual would be responsible for investigating any ongoing criminal activity discovered during the audit. This special prosecutor should be someone with no ties to Massachusetts, such as a retired federal prosecutor or magistrate who can act independently of local law enforcement agencies and the district attorney's office. This ensures that any criminal findings are investigated and prosecuted without bias, reinforcing the integrity of the audit. By having a special prosecutor in place, the public can be confident that any criminal activity uncovered during the audit will be handled transparently and without influence from entities already viewed with skepticism. This separation between the audit's operational findings and criminal investigations is essential to maintaining public trust and ensuring that the audit results are accepted by the community. If the audit team identifies any historical criminal activity, it should be fully documented in the final audit report. Lack of defined scope and concerns about RFP construction. The most significant concern regarding this RFP is the absence of a clearly defined scope of work. While the document outlines a broad, all-encompassing audit, it lacks specificity about the obligations and deliverables expected from the consulting firm. This ambiguity makes it difficult, if not impossible, to develop an actionable plan, raising serious questions about the project's feasibility and the likelihood of achieving meaningful results. A well-structured audit requires clear objectives and expectations. Without them, the audit becomes a nebulous task prone to misinterpretation and inefficiency. Moreover, the construction of the RFP itself is concerning. Not only does the document exhibit vagueness, but it also contains factual inaccuracies that undermine its credibility. For example, references to, quote, 25 years of post-peace officer standards and training records, unquote, are inaccurate, as POST has only existed for a few years and remains in its developmental stages. Such inaccuracies suggest that parts of the RFP may have been generated or influenced by artificial intelligence, which raises concerns about the board's understanding of the audit process and the comprehensive scope required for a project of this magnitude. In our professional judgment, this lack of well-defined guidance renders it impossible for an audit firm to effectively plan, execute, or deliver substantial results. When an audit is linked to a high-profile case, such as an internationally recognized homicide, the stakes are even higher. Poor audit outcomes will only exacerbate tensions and intensify public scrutiny. Conducting an audit under the current RFP guidelines would likely result in confusion and controversy rather than providing the clarity the city seeks. Unrealistic time frame. Another significant concern is the compressed timeline for completing the audit. Conducting a thorough and effective operational audit requires time to properly assess records, observe operations, and interview key personnel. The proposed audit schedule overlaps with the busiest and most challenging time of the year, the holiday season, making it nearly impossible to achieve meaningful results within the short time frame provided. The combination of holiday scheduling difficulties and the department's preparation for a high-profile legal trial creates an environment where access to critical personnel and records will likely be restricted, severely limiting the audit's potential for success. An audit under such rushed and constrained conditions would risk being superficial, incomplete, and ultimately ineffective. Underfunding for a project of this magnitude. The financial aspect of this project is another factor that weighed heavily in our decision. Conducting an operational audit of this scale with the expertise and objectivity required means bringing in seasoned professionals, experts with no conflicts of interest or biases. Such talent comes at a price, and the funding allocated for this project does not reflect the resources necessary to ensure a high-quality audit. There is an old adage, if it's fast and cheap, it won't be good. If it's cheap and good, it won't be fast. And if it's fast and good, it won't be cheap. Unfortunately, the current RFP appears to aim for fast and cheap, which makes it virtually impossible to deliver the quality audit that the citizens of Canton deserve. The resources and time required to complete this project with integrity and thoroughness are not aligned with the funding or schedule outlined in the RFP. Potential involvement in high-profile legal cases. Additionally, our team has identified potential legal risks associated with the ongoing high-profile homicide cases involving Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore. These cases have garnered national and global attention, and there is a strong likelihood that any firm conducting the operational audit could be called upon as witnesses or subpoenaed to provide records in connection with these trials. With the Karen Reed trial approaching and the Sandra Birchmore investigation ongoing, the likelihood of being drawn into legal proceedings is substantial. This is a burden that any auditing firm must carefully consider, especially when the RFP offers no clear safeguards or guidance on who would bear the cost of legal expenses or compensate for the time and resources diverted to these matters. Conclusion. In light of these significant concerns, namely the undefined scope, unrealistic timeframes, insufficient funding for the scale of work required, potential legal complications, and questionable accuracy within the RFP, Sturm Group has decided not to submit an RFP response for this project. As it currently stands, this is a losing proposition for any firm that undertakes the audit. We would not be able to deliver the high standard of service and results that both the City of Canton and its citizens deserve. Given the ambiguities in the RFP, it will be exceedingly difficult for the city to attract a reputable team of subject matter experts willing to take on the project. We strongly encourage the city to conduct a thorough vetting of any firm that expresses interest, as those with the qualifications and expertise to complete an audit of this magnitude will likely avoid this project in its current form. This leaves the risk of less qualified firms submitting proposals which may not deliver the comprehensive, detailed audit the city requested and requires. Given these serious concerns, we strongly recommend that the city withdraw the current RFP and seek professional assistance in drafting a new one with a clearly defined scope of services. If the city chooses to set a deadline, we recommend allowing at least 1 year from the contract award to the final presentation of findings to the public. We suggest reissuing the project at the start of the new year with an anticipated completion date in the spring of 2026. This approach will allow for a thorough and credible audit, ensuring that it aligns with the city's objectives and meets the high standards expected by the community. Respectfully submitted, Larry Smith. Sorry, y'all. I'm a little bit out of breath from reading all of that just because it's long sentences. But also, prior to recording, I decided to try my own experiment with putting my car in reverse and trying to drive 24.2 miles per hour. And it was terrifying. My heart has been just pounding out of my chest ever since, and I have not been able to catch my breath since that experiment, which was practically an hour ago at this point. So again, I'm sorry for the breathless recording here. Anyway, I'm guessing that despite this eloquent yet brutally honest assessment, the company must have received some backlash because the owner of the firm posted additional info on his Facebook profile. and it says, Canton Police Department Audit. My letter, now a matter of public record, was crafted following extensive consultations with my team of subject matter experts, most of whom were recruited from outside New England due to their specialized expertise. This team comprises individuals who have attended the FBI National Academy, hold FBI LEEDA certifications, possess advanced degrees, and are published authors in their respective fields. Our team includes retired police chiefs, a lawyer, a college professor in criminal justice, and the director of a statewide evidence lab program. Most importantly, each team member brings the experience, integrity, and capability necessary to undertake a project of this magnitude and complexity. During our meeting, concerns were immediately raised regarding the clarity and intent of the RFP, request for proposal. One team member questioned whether the document reflected a genuine commitment to a legitimate operational audit. Oh, you know what? Let me translate that. Is this a joke? Is basically what he's saying. That one team member wondered if this entire request for proposal was a joke because of the way that it was structured. Our team has extensive experience with RFP processes. We have reviewed, responded to, and authored numerous RFPs. Yet this RFP was unlike any we have encountered. It was alarmingly vague, lacked defined goals and measurable outcomes. After a meticulous 90-minute review of the RFP, the decision not to proceed was unanimous among the 9 experts. My decision to write the letter was rooted in deep commitment to transparency and accountability. We believe the citizens of Canton deserve to know that, in its current state, this RFP is a disservice to all stakeholders. Without clearly defined objectives, the proposed audit will fail to deliver the meaningful insights that taxpayers rightfully expect, risking the waste of $200,000 on an ineffective process. Our concerns were further validated after observing the IAC meeting designed to address vendor inquiries. The meeting revealed a lack of leadership, professionalism, and strategic direction, reinforcing our decision to withdraw. The disorganized nature of the process was evident and, in our view, likely discouraged other reputable firms from participating. The experts I assembled for this project consist of some of the most respected experts in the field, and our 9-0 unanimous decision speaks to the severity of the issues we identified. We remain committed to delivering high-quality, impactful audits. However, we cannot support a process that, in our professional judgment, fails to serve the community's best interest. We believe that our decision not to engage speaks volumes about the shortcomings of this RFP and underscores the need for greater clarity, purpose, and accountability in such critical undertakings. So, as it stands, Canton apparently has no viable candidates to consider for the audit, and we all know why. Meanwhile, the 200-page report investigating Kevin Albert's day drinking reveals part of why the overtime situation is so out of control. Overtime procedures. Gallagher explained the overtime obligations and the balance between flex time and overtime within the detective unit. He noted that there is a 3-hour minimum for overtime, meaning if a day shift officer is required to stay beyond their shift for an investigation, they are compensated for at least 3 hours. That makes it sound like even if they're just there for 20 minutes or half an hour, they're still getting paid for at least 3 hours. Detectives must obtain approval for overtime in advance unless they are already on duty and required to stay longer due to assisting the patrol division or responding to a patrol division request. My God, I hope that does not include responding to the building checks over on Turnpike Street. Regarding Albert's overtime for the trip to Sandwich, Gallagher clarified that detectives enter their own overtime into the system and include comments in the attendance roster, noting the case name or number to indicate the reason. Gallagher confirmed that Albert is known for diligently requesting overtime approval in advance. While Gallagher does not specifically recall the July 19, 2022 overtime request, he is confident that Albert followed the proper procedures and requested permission for the assignment. Well, I mean, I guess he can say that since he was working anywhere between, what was it, like 74 hours a week and 106 hours a week? So Gallagher would be the one who would know. So Gallagher was an integral part of the Kevin Albert investigation, and Kevin was on paid administrative leave while the investigation was conducted. Let's see how much this sideshow cost the residents of Canton. Kevin Albert earned $176,388 in 2023. Divided by 12 equals $14,699 per month, yielding a 3-month total of $44,097 paid by the town while he was on administrative leave. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Paul Gallagher earned $322,389 in 2023, which, when divided by 12, equals $26,866 per month, yielding a 3-month total of $80,598. I'd like to think that Lieutenant Gallagher was working on other things during this 3-month period, but it's unclear. Also, it's evident that many other paid officials were inconvenienced during this investigation, such as Attorney Terrence M. Delahanty with the law offices of Terrence M. Delahanty. So it doesn't seem unreasonable that this amount of money was wasted investigating what happened while Kevin Albert was wasted. Grand total, $124,695. A healthy chunk of the cost of a police audit down the drain on one day drinking detective whose stern punishment was having his pay docked 3 shifts. So, let me get this straight. If you drink on the job, your consequence is a 3-month paid summer vacation for the low, low price of 3 shifts. I don't even know what to say at this point. God save the Commonwealth. Canton, I'm sorry. You deserve better. Just know that the world is watching. The FBI is watching. Your justice will come. We're all rooting for you. So hang in there. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And take care of that community because the good needs to triumph. Until the next one, stay strong. I love you.